I'm Sandy Lowe. I'm Bold Strokes Books Senior Editor, and these are our lovely panelists. We have Charlotte Greene, we have Susie Clark, we have Eric Peterson, Georgia Beers, and Aurora Ray. Hi guys, welcome. All right, so this panel is all about me, which is cool because I'm super interesting. But actually, it's all about them. This panel's topic is traits of our authors that they have given to their characters. So you get to learn a little bit about our authors, maybe something you didn't know, some trait they have imbued their character with that they too possess. I am very interested in learning. Okay, so I do have an opening question. And my question is, do you have an aspirational trait? Like a trait you don't have, but you wish you did? What trait do you wish you had? Start with Charlotte.
I guess, and this is funny because it sort of relates to my reading, which is I'm sort of naturally shy, but I think it comes off as suspicious of a lot of, and I wish I wasn't like that. I wish I could just, automatically just be what I think of as a friendly self. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I like that.
That is the first thing I think of when I think of you, Charlotte. It's like, she is
gives everyone the side eye. Susie, how about you? Do you have an aspirational trait?
Well, I have a little bit of it, but I sure need more, and that's patience. I wish that I had more patience. I think if I did, it would save me a lot of sorrow, and especially those around me.
For sure. We could all use more of that. Georgia?
I wish I had more confidence in a way that means that I am confident in my own abilities. I don't have great self-esteem. It's been something that I have struggled with my entire life. And it's gotten better as I've gotten older, but it's still there. I still have this, this overshadowing cloud of not good enough that has been with me since I was, 13, 14 years old. So I'm pretty good at hiding it, but I wish it would go away altogether and I could have some actual confidence.
Yeah. And I think that's a good lesson too. Like, as one of the reigning queens of this industry and, still that kind of imposter syndrome a little bit too, I think.
Yep. I fight it every day.
Eric, how about you? An aspirational trait?
Yeah, well, when I was thinking about this panel, I really realized that my main character in this book is like me in every way except for one. And that is that Charlie says things aloud that I would only dream of saying because I care too much what people think. So I'm probably better at parties, but Charlie's probably a lot more fun to read about.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Aurora?
Yeah, I don't want to just copy Georgia, but I think that's definitely the first thing that came to mind. And I'll narrow it to say body confidence, because I think, I've been in my career for 20 years and like, I can rock that and write a stern email and, not bat an eye, but the sort of moving through the world and having that just sort of personal confidence. I have graduated to team like fake it till you make it, which is like a vast improvement, but still very much in the fake it category.
Awesome. All right. There's some things to live into. Okay, we are going to start our readings and we are going to start with Susie Clark. If everyone else could please stop video and mute, that would be amazing. Hi, Susie. Please tell us a little bit about your book and what trait it is that you are showing us today.
Well, the book is Shadow Dancers. It is the third and final book in the Shadow series. My trait that I wanted to do today was selfishness. And the characters that I've chosen to do is one of the main characters, Claire. What's happened is, I'll set the scene up for you so you can get a good idea what's going on. Shadow Dancers, of course, is the third and final book in the series, and it opens up with Claire and Rachel together at a hotel room, and they haven't been together in almost a year because, well, they've been together, but Claire has just gotten her memory back after almost a year that she was married. She's married to Rachel, so they've only been together for a few hours, and unfortunately, in comes Claire's friend, one of her best friends, Tilly, who's a singer, and Rachel's coworker, Catherine, to tell Rachel that she must leave and go with them to help find a friend that's missing. And so Claire is very upset about it. And so they go over to Claire's other best friend, Sarah's house, and Rachel packs up and they leave. And Claire is left alone with her two friends, Tilly and Sarah. And this scene is a scene that takes place right after Rachel leaves. And I want to warn everybody, it does have some language in it. So Claire lay on the bed for a long time, numb, unwilling to move. She turned over and buried her face in the pillow, balling her fists in the sheets. How could Rachel leave her? Why wouldn't everyone just let them alone? Someone knocked softly on the bedroom door. Her heart skipped a beat. She jolted forward and sucked in a breath, her eyes fixed on the door. Rachel? Sarah entered. Claire exhaled deeply and slid back onto the bed, not trying to hide her disappointment. Sarah wrapped her arms around her, her warm hug comforting and reassuring. Don't stay in here alone. It'll just make you more miserable, Claire. Come downstairs and visit with us. Tilly wants to know if you want to play cards. I hate this, Sarah. It's so unfair. Claire slid off the bed and wiped her face. I know, honey. Come on. You'll feel better if you're not alone. Claire started to walk out of the bedroom, muscles tensed. She gripped the door handle and slammed the door shut. It's Tilly's fault. They started down the stairs, each step bringing more pressure, building like someone had turned the burner on high and slammed the lid on the pot. She ground her teeth, her breath catching in her chest. By the time she sat at the game table in the rec room, she'd reached the boiling point. She grabbed the cards off the table and started to shuffle, but then slammed them down and glowered at Tilly. She couldn't hold herself back. The words spewed out like an eruption of Mount St. Helens. Damn it to hell, Tilly. I hope you're happy now. Sarah's eyes widened and she stiffened. Tilly's eyes filled with tears. I only wanted to help. Claire pushed the cards away and jumped up. Help my ass. You better explain right now or you're not going to live long enough to sing another note. She moved toward Tilly, hands clenched, a pounding in her chest, a flush of heat in her cheeks. She couldn't control it even if she wanted to, which she didn't. Sarah stood and stopped her, grabbing her arm and sitting her back down at the table. Tilly reached out as if pleading. I swear to you, Claire, I just wanted to help. When Catherine called me from the airport and told me she needed to get to Rachel, I knew she was worried and I knew Rachel would want to know about Jack. Tilly, do you have any idea the shitstorm you started? Claire stood again, her voice an octave higher than normal as it bounced off the walls, startling even her. She felt like someone had taken a knife and ripped her open. The feeling was so visceral, she held her stomach with both hands. I just tried to help. Tilly put her hand to her mouth. He could be in real trouble. He owns a security agency. He's not stupid. They can take care of themselves, said Claire. Tilly stood and moved to her, putting her hand on her forearm. Please don't be mad at me. I didn't want to cause any trouble. I just wanted to help. Please forgive me. Claire jerked away. No, I don't forgive you. You have no idea what Rachel and I have gone through these last couple of years. You don't know what I've gone through since I got shot. I finally get to be with my wife after a year of hell. And now as soon as someone says they need Rachel's help, you tell them exactly where to find her and destroy any chance of us having any time to reconnect. You're an idiot. Tilly put her hands on her hips and stiffened. Claire, I think you're overreacting. Oh, shut the hell up. You have no idea what I'm feeling or thinking. Sarah stood. Don't tell her to shut up, Claire. She just did what she thought was right. Claire shouted back. Butt out, Sarah. Don't tell Sarah to butt out. She just as much right to do what she has to do as you do. Tilly, if you say one more word, I swear to God, I'm going to slap the shit out of you. Sarah raised her hands. Both of you calm down. Tilly and Claire turned to Sarah and told her to shut up at the same time. Out of the corner of her eye, Claire saw Ricky, Sarah's husband, come through the hallway. Tilly's face turned red. Just because you had a head injury doesn't mean I won't slap the shit out of you, Claire. Claire made a fist and took a step closer to her. That'll be a cold day in hell. Sarah wedged between them and tried to stop her. Tilly half shoved Sarah out of the way. You don't have to protect me, Sarah. I can take care of myself. Yeah, like you took care of this? Unable to slap Tilly because Sarah blocked her hand, Claire grabbed a handful of Tilly's hair and started to pull her toward her. Son of a bitch. Tilly grabbed a handful of Claire's hair in return. Sarah tried to separate them, but they all became entangled in each other. A loud, shrill whistle broke through the air. They immediately stopped and looked toward the hallway. Ricky stood with his hands out looking at them. Enough, he boomed. What in the hell is going on? Ask the idiot savant, Claire said, nodding toward Tilly. Why didn't you tell him what this is all about? That's it. You're out of control, Tilly said, turning to go after Claire. Ricky stepped forward, grabbed Tilly around the waist and strong-armed her toward the couch by the game table. I said that's enough. All three of you sit down and shut up. Now, what's this all about? Claire pointed at Tilly. Ask her. She's the one has to be in everyone's business because she has no life of her own. Tilly stood and stabbed her finger in the air at her. You're just a spoiled, overreacting crybaby. And if you think about someone else besides yourself for 1 second, everything would be fine. Claire stood and stabbed her finger back at Tilly. Oh, yeah? Like you don't know what it's like to care about anyone other than yourself, you self-absorbed twit. Crybaby. Bitch. Go to hell, Claire. You first. Sarah raised her hands vehemently in the air. Stop it, both of you, right now. Sarah explained to Ricky what Tilly had done and why Rachel and Catherine had left for Las Vegas. I don't see what the problem is, Ricky said. I know you're upset, Claire, but it sounds to me like Rachel needed to go back to help find Jack. Surely you wouldn't put your time with her over someone else's life. What's really bothering you? Claire burst into tears. Rachel's going to get killed doing that damn job. That's it.
I just lost my mouse. Has anyone ever had that happen to them where you're like, where is it? Where did it go? Wow. Well, that sounds like any given holiday with my family. So that was awesome. Thank you very much, Susie.
You're welcome.
Right. Next up, since she's here, we have Charlotte Greene.
Oh.
Hello.
I'm reading today. Let's see. Yep. I'm reading today from The Wedding Setup, which is my January release. I'm Charlotte Greene, and it's a lesbian romance, and it's about Ryan, a New York lesbian businesswoman who is helping Stuart, her gay best friend, plan his Valentine's Day wedding in Loveland, Colorado. Stuart, meanwhile, is trying to set her up with another member of the wedding party, his friend Maddie. In the part I'm about to read, Ryan has just arrived in town. Getting to Colorado was seriously terrible, and there was a bunch of canceled flights and weather issues, and she's basically still exhausted. In this scene, she's meeting with Stuart and his fiance Jay at a local brewery. Despite the cold weather, or perhaps because of it, the brewery was packed. Ryan paused on the small patio outside to collect herself before going in. She managed to delay this moment all afternoon, but this was finally it. Stuart and Jay were waiting for her, and if she tried to put off seeing them again, Stuart at least would come looking for her. This morning in the hotel, she'd taken a long bath, called the airline, spent the extra money to have her found luggage expedited to her, and then napped until it showed up late in the afternoon. Of course, only one suitcase made it. The other was still flying around somewhere over the Midwest. She unpacked, tried to sleep a little longer, gave up, watched the market on the TV for a while, and then got ready, putting herself into meticulous order before walking down the street to the brewery, already 20 minutes late. And still, she hesitated. Inside the brewery, Stuart wasn't likely to spot her lollygagging out here, so she backed away from the door and sat down on an empty bench. She rubbed her leather gloves over her tired face, trying to whip up some courage, enthusiasm, or both before going in. Hey, stranger, Stuart said, making her jump. She peered up at him and then froze, stunned. He'd grown a beard. It was nicely trimmed and full. He'd been entirely clean shaven the whole time she'd known him, even in the goatee heyday of the late 90s. His beard had a slight reddish tinge, unlike his naturally black curly hair. He was wearing dark, thick-framed glasses, which was also unusual. He'd worn contacts their entire friendship. Unlike his former hipster wear, his clothes, too, were very different. He was wearing a green Sherpa-lined flannel coat, blue jeans, heavy tan snow boots, and a gray wool-knit cap. He couldn't have looked less like himself if he'd been wearing a costume. Hey, yourself, she finally managed. He held out a hand and helped her to her feet, pulling her into a long, fierce hug. Oh my God, it's good to see you, he said, drawing back. He kept his hands on her shoulders. You too. You've lost some weight, honey. Are you taking care of yourself? He'd always been the one to bring her or send her lunch when he'd lived in the city with her. And sometimes even after he'd moved. She forgot to eat most of the time at work, which could be a major problem when she had long days. Her assistant Gloria had taken on that task as part of her daily rota, but Gloria wasn't as persuasive as Stuart, who knew her tastes and how to guilt her into taking breaks. I'm fine, she said. And anyway, it's not like I'm the one who's changed around here. He laughed and gestured at his beard. Do you like it? She considered him closely for a minute, long enough for him to shift from foot to foot, clearly uncomfortable. You know what? He said, forget I asked. She laughed. No, I'm sorry. I do like it. It's just really different. He laughed. I've gone native, Ryan. Jay and I even have the same jacket. She pretended to gag, and he play punched her arm. Anyway, he said, what are you doing out here? It's freezing. I told you to come inside when you got here. We have a table. Come on in and meet everyone. Everyone? She asked. Stuart ignored her, pulling her after him and inside the crowded room. Most of her reluctance and hesitation was an outcome of her exhaustion, but part of it was her own cowardice. She hated meeting new people. But Stuart meant a lot to her, and Jay obviously meant a lot to him, which meant he was going to be a part of her life now too. It was a lot of pressure, and walking inside was like running a gauntlet. She took a deep breath and tried to relax. Meeting people could be fun, right? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so quick question for you. Is it easier since the pandemic and like the social interaction on Zoom? Is the interaction easier on Zoom, you think, than in person, or is it the same?
I'm a professor, and so I talk to my students a lot on Zoom. And I do feel like some of them are more confident on Zoom. I don't know about myself. I feel like there's like in some scenarios where I definitely feel like I'm more confident, mostly because I don't have to wear pants, right?
Everyone's more confident without pants.
It's like, yeah, I'm pantsless here. But on the other hand, I think all of us miss the kind of in person, getting a beer at a nice brewery and that. So. Yeah, I do think there's sort of benefits to both, really.
Sure. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Next up, we have Eric Peterson. Eric has already told us that his character is all him, except in one small way. So get ready to learn more about Eric.
Okay, so my book is Loyalty, Love, and Vermouth, and it is about a true thing that happened to me. In 2014, my dog was stolen from my home, and my chosen family really rallied around me. The scene I'm about to read, though, is from a flashback, because I thought it was really illustrative of something that's about me. And that is, I love, but I really hate dating. And so I just get super nervous about it. I don't like the ritual about it. I don't like it just gives me agita. So that's a piece of my personality that I think really comes through in one particular scene. Just as the air cooled and the sweaters emerged from the bottom drawers of our dressers, but before the leaves had quite begun to turn, Lee decided I should try dating again. I insisted I wasn't ready, but he was equally insistent that I was, and it was time. Mostly, I think he just wanted to set up my Tinder profile. Isn't that a hookup app? I asked. It can be, and don't give me that look. You eventually want a boyfriend, naturally. Do I? But a little hanky-panky in the meantime wouldn't kill you, and of course you do. Don't be silly. I was in Lee's kitchen on a Sunday afternoon making us some grilled cheese sandwiches while he was scrolling through my photos trying to find a sexy picture of me. I doubted such a thing existed, but Lee remembered one and described it in perfect detail. He had taken the picture with my phone. It was taken in Rehoboth, he said, at Aqua Grill the summer before last, and I was wearing a tank top. Freddie was in the picture, but Lee was certain we could crop him out. Ah, here it is. He handed me my phone. Yes, I was wearing a tank I'd purchased in Provincetown the month before. I had been facing Freddie, but had turned my head to face the camera. I was smiling. Freddie was smiling too. It looked as if he'd said something funny, but I couldn't remember what. The adaptive lenses of my glasses had darkened in the sun, but it was obviously me to anybody who knew me. I held what appeared to be a vodka and cranberry in my hand. As Lee had predicted, Freddie was standing at some distance and could easily be removed. Just like life, I thought. I look fat here. You look hot and sweaty. Look at my belly. Don't you have any photos of me taken from the front? Hey, your belly is sexy, he said, and I made another face. And if someone doesn't think so, they can swipe left and keep moving. Confia en mi, cariño. You're going to get a lot of attention with this. He raised his fingers to my lips before I could object and uploaded the picture to my new profile. I returned my attention to my grilled cheese sandwiches and attaining that perfect shade of toasty goodness on both sides. Better than a lover, I told myself, almost believing it. It wasn't until I delivered a perfectly toasted grilled cheese sandwich, the bread both crispy and buttery, the cheese both gooey and plentiful, to the kitchen counter that I realized Lee was typing on my behalf a message from me to my potential suitors. Let me see that, I said, but Lee swiveled away before I could reach my phone. Leonardo Garcia Dorset, give me the phone. I'm almost finished. You're going to get so much dick with this. But so much dick. Look, I've had enough dicks for the year, I said. Let me just see it. I don't want you to. Hush. Besides, your grilled cheese sandwich is burning. It wasn't, but it was toasted more than it should have been. I should have given the slightly charred sandwich to Lee, but I was afraid he'd retaliate by telling every gay man in Washington, D.C. that I was chomping at the bit to chomp at their bits. Half of my sandwich was gone before Lee had even taken a bite of his, and frankly, it annoyed me. I had worked hard on that sandwich. That was a perfect sandwich. When he was finally done typing, he handed me my phone and bit into his sandwich, for which he was appropriately full of praise. And yes, I had to admit, he had done a good job capturing my personality in the profile he created. Both Freddie and my protruding stomach were cropped out of the photo he'd chosen, and he described my situation accurately, recently single and okay with it, without making me sound like either a hermit or a whore. Okay, where do I hit send? Oh, sorry, I sent it. It's already out there. I wanted to be upset, but he was enjoying his grilled cheese sandwich too much. And I'll be honest, that was a really good sandwich, and the version of me he broadcast to the world, it wasn't half bad either.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I was muted because I was laughing all the way through that. That's amazing. Thank you, Eric. I loved it.
Very much.
So
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We are going to have to have you do all our readings in future, complete with accents, please.
I'm available.
Be wonderful. All righty. Next up, have my list here. I don't. We have Georgia Beers.
Sorry, I wasn't ready.
There she is. Hi, Georgia.
Here I am. I'm here.
Tell us about the trait that you're.
I'm going to read to you. What?
I said, tell us about the trait that you're.
I will. I'm going to read to you from On the Rocks. I actually had a little trouble coming up with this reading because I've read from this book about 3 times, and I try really hard not to do the same reading over and over. But because we had a theme, I had to not only find a reading, but find one that included traits that are mine. So it's I don't want to say it's a stretch, but for people who don't know, I left my long-term marriage a few years ago, and I have sort of mixed feelings about weddings at this point in my life. And they're completely opposite ends of the spectrum. Sometimes I think I never, ever want to get married again, and I hate everything about weddings. And then sometimes I think, oh, weddings make me cry, and I would like to do that. And I was married legally, but I did not have a big wedding. So I think that's part of it for me, that I always the little girl in me always kind of wanted a traditional wedding. And when I see somebody I love getting married, it does things to me. I'm always happy for them, and I'm always a little sad for me. So I chose a scene that's not really between the love interests in this book. It's between the three cousins who are the main characters of this Swizzle Stick Romance series. So this is a scene where we are in the back of Martini's bar, which is called the Bar Back. And Julia is behind her practice bar, and she has invited her cousins, Vanessa and Amelia, to come talk to her because she needs their help with something. So are we here to test out this cocktail? Vanessa held up her glass, which was a blend of blackberry brandy, something fizzy, 7-Up maybe, and some simple syrup, but she wasn't sure. Because it's damn good, but it's not terribly Christmassy if that's what you're going for. No, that's not what I'm going for, and I didn't ask you guys here for drink testing. Julia's face had gone alarmingly serious, and Vanessa blinked at her, then looked to Amelia, who suddenly seemed as worried as she felt. "Are you okay?" Vanessa asked. Amelia was on the floor, petting Delilah's head. "Things are okay with the bar," she said. With your dad? With Savannah?" It was like she was ticking off boxes, and Vanessa appreciated the organizational approach of it. Julia smiled then. "All of those things are good." "Then what's up?" Vanessa asked, "because you're scaring us." Amelia nodded, her eyes slightly wide. "Relax, you guys." Julia moved her hands, palms down in front of her, in the universal sign for calm down. "It's nothing bad. In fact, I think it's really good, but you're my family. You're the most important people in the world to me, and I need your opinions." With that, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a box, a ring box. "Oh my God," Vanessa and Amelia said at the exact same time, with the exact same inflection. Julia flipped the box open to reveal a beautifully classy diamond ring. "Are you asking us to marry you, Jules?" Amelia asked. "Because that would be super weird, but you're totally cute and you own a bar, so I might be willing to put up with the raised eyebrows." "When?" Vanessa asked, laughing at Amelia's words, and also from the sheer joy of what Julia's actions meant. "Christmas Eve," Julia said, "after all the family stuff and we're home by ourselves in front of the fire." Her throat moved in a swallow and she lifted watery eyes to them. "Do you think it's too soon?" she asked, her voice so quiet that it was almost a whisper. Then she sighed. "It's too soon, isn't it?" Vanessa put a hand on Julia's wrist and waited until her gaze lifted and met hers. "Do you love her?" she asked softly, already knowing the answer, but wanting to help Julia see what she saw. "You know I do, more than anything." Julia's unshed tears seemed on the brink of falling. Amelia pointed at her. "Well, there's the proof right there. How many times have we seen Jules cry?" Amelia asked Vanessa. 4 times in our entire lives?" Vanessa grinned and nodded and squeezed Julia's wrist. "Around that, yeah." Amelia stood and took the few steps to sit with her cousins. "Listen," she began, and put her hand on Vanessa so the 3 of them were linked. "You know I'm not the biggest supporter of marriage right now. I'd be happy if the entire institution vanished into thin air, never to be mentioned again. But if any 2 people in my life were meant to be married, it's you and Savannah." She cleared her throat. "I know I tell you all the time how lucky you are to have her, but what I don't say often enough is how lucky she is to have you." Vanessa felt her throat tighten, and she pointed at Amelia and nodded. "Yes, that." "You really think so?" Julia asked. "Yes," Vanessa and Amelia said in tandem, and then all 3 of them were crying and hugging, and Delilah used her nose to push at the trio, wanting in on whatever love fest was happening. "Savannah's going to be so surprised," Vanessa said. "Is she working tonight?" Julia shook her head and wiped the back of her hand across her cheek. "Studying. She's got a test tomorrow." She glanced down at the ring still in her hand. "Do you guys think she'll like this?" The ring was simple in its elegance, not flashy, but not cheap. A very classy setting, gold with a diamond in the center and 2 small ones on either side. "I think she's going to love it," Vanessa told her, and she knew it was the absolute truth. For a moment, she let herself feel the prick of envy. Wondered what it would be like to love somebody so much that you wanted to be with them until the end of time. She'd never felt that, at least not yet. Her brain instantly tossed her an image of Grace smiling at her from the kitchen, her eyes soft, and Vanessa swallowed hard, pretending not to know how often she thought about Grace, how much she was beginning to miss being with her. You guys are the best, Julia said, yanking Vanessa back into the present reality. I wish we could be there, Amelia said. At Julia's raised eyebrows, she said, I mean, I know, of course we can't be, but I wish you'd record it somehow. I'd love to see your face when you ask. I'll see what I can manage, Julia said. And then she pushed to her feet and returned to her usual spot behind the practice bar. She blew out a big breath, then looked from Vanessa to Amelia and back. Thanks, you guys. Are you kidding? Vanessa said, we are so happy for you. She saw Amelia open her mouth and just knew a smart-ass comment about marriage was coming. So she shot her cousin a look that basically said, don't you dare or I will punch you in the throat. Amelia's mouth snapped shut and she lifted one shoulder in a half shrug. She hoped being here tonight would give her a chance to talk a bit more about her own situation with Grace, because the reality was she could feel herself slipping in deeper and deeper. Any hope of just dipping a toe in with the parent of a student was long gone. And while she was massively enjoying herself, she was still really nervous. Maybe talking it through with her cousins would help, but she didn't want to steal any of the attention from Julia's news, so she just laughed and nodded and kept her thoughts to herself. She could deal with it on her own. She glanced up at Julia, her sparkling eyes, her flushed cheeks, her very obvious happiness, and only one thing flashed through Vanessa's mind. Just 3 words, just one thought. I want that.
Oh, well, I also think that it's true that you are an excellent friend, and so are the characters in your books. So that is another
Thank you.
truth that
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
matches that reading.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Last but certainly not least, we have Aurora Ray. Hello, hello.
Hello, Sandy.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about the trait that you're sharing today?
All right, so I too struggled with this. I was trying to find something I hadn't read before, but I think I actually came up with something really fun. I'm reading from A Convenient Arrangement, which is one of 2 books that I co-authored with Jamie Clevenger. And in both cases, we each took one of the characters and wrote all of the chapters in that character's point of view. And I think it actually made for a really fun and nice juxtaposition. So I'm actually going to read 2 tiny snippets tonight. The first is actually from Cody's point of view, and Cody is the character that Jamie wrote and who sort of portrayed Jess as a much more confident person than I would have, or as I would have sort of imbued into the character. And then I'm going to read a small snippet from Jess's point of view, which actually feels maybe a little bit more natural for me. And so this first little snippet comes from technically their second date. They've just gone to a work dinner at the president's house at the university where Cody works. Well, that went better than expected. Cody unlocked the car and opened the passenger door. Jess raised a brow. She rested a hand on the edge of the door, but didn't get in. Was it too dreadful to spend the evening with me? As it turns out, no. Cody laughed, more relaxed and happier than she'd been in a long time. The wine probably didn't hurt, but she'd only had 1 glass. Mostly it was Jess. Being around her made everything feel more exciting. With one flirty look, Jess awakened desire she'd given up for lost. But it wasn't only the arousal part. It was as if she'd walked into a room with extra oxygen. She wanted to take a deep breath and not leave anytime soon. Good. Jess seemed to take her answer at face value, but Cody wanted to give her more. To be honest, I've been looking forward to seeing you so much that I've had trouble focusing on anything else. Not a lie, her daydreaming about Jess had almost been a big problem. She'd nearly deleted 2 months of data on the Android. What I wasn't looking forward to was a stuffy dinner with the president. Jillian's not stuffy, neither is her wife. I know, I was wrong. Jess brushed her hand down Cody's tie. I like someone who could admit when they're wrong and rock a tie. Cody held her breath, and when Jess took a step closer, and instead of getting in the car, he looked nervous all of a sudden. I suddenly am. She looked at her shoes and chuckled. I don't know why. When she raised her eyes to Jess, she wanted to kiss her more than anything. Her heart raced, egging her on, but she didn't make a move, and Jess only held her gaze. The heat between their bodies ratcheted up. Should we talk about why you're nervous? Jess gave Cody's tie a subtle tug. No, I'll get over it. Don't worry. She tried to smile. Jess's eyes narrowed. Are you one of those strong, silent types? That depends. Will you give me a pass if I say yes? Only because I'm in a good mood. She let go of Cody's tie and shifted a step back. Just don't think I'll always let you get off so easy. So yeah, that's not anything I could pull off in real life. This is a little bit, a few days later, before Jess is going to go over to Cody's house. Jess emerged from her room to find Finn on the sofa with the television on and Rascal sitting next to her. Rascal looked up but didn't move from her spot pressed against Finn's leg. Said she didn't need to leave for half an hour. She joined Finn, flopping unceremoniously on the couch. I didn't even hear you come in. You were in the shower. I was going to get in right after you, but I haven't managed to get up. She looked pointedly at the dog, who merely raised one eyebrow than the other. Resistance is futile. Finn chuckled before looking her up and down. Don't you have a date tonight? Yes, but it's a stay-in movie date. Finn's eyebrow wag was more suggestive, but decidedly less charming than Rascal's. All the more reason to show a little skin. Ben's going to be there. I'm not going to dress like I want to have sex when a 5-year-old is going to be present. Finn angled her head. Does that mean you aren't even wearing sexy underwear? They'd been friends and lived together long enough for Finn to get away with saying things like that. Still, that's none of your business. I knew it. Finn pointed at her for extra effect. You're hoping to get a little nookie after the kid goes to bed. She certainly entertained the possibility. Even as she'd put on jeans and a relatively innocuous sweater, she hadn't been able to quash the optimism of something sexy underneath. No comment. Finn folded her arms. That pretty much answers my question, you know. For the record, I wear silky and lacy things because they make me feel good, which was true, if not the entirety of the truth. And you also have sports bras and granny panties. I live with you. I've seen your laundry. She rolled her eyes. Has anyone ever told you you act like an annoying little brother instead of a grown woman sometimes? Finn shrugged. Just you. She reached over Rascal and gave Finn's shoulder a shove. Jerk. Wait, Toni called me a teenage boy the other day when I got a half a dozen donuts for breakfast. Does that count? Finn lifted a finger, though I'd like to point out I was prepared to share. It's not my fault she only eats healthy crap. Jess pressed her lips together, but didn't try too hard to hide the smile. It's a good thing I love you. I love you too, and I hope you get to make out at least, especially after the kissus interruptus last time. Finn hefted herself up, much to Rascal's chagrin, and maybe get to second base. You're such a child, Jess said to Finn's back as she headed to the direction of the bathroom. It was a retort on principle, though, because really, she hoped she did too.
Oh, well, I have to admit that I too have sports bras and granny panties, so that is my common trait from that reading. So here's a question for you, Aurora. You wrote this book with co-author Jamie Clevenger. What's a trait you learned about Jamie through writing 2 books with her that you didn't know before you started writing?
I think I got glimpses of this when we were talking about writing books together and starting to put together proposals, but it was only in writing that I realized how stubborn she can be, but in a good way, not in that we disagreed about things, but yes.
All right.
I'll
Cool.
leave it at that. In a very good way.
All right. If you're not already here, please jump back on. We do have a couple of minutes for questions. If you have questions for our panelists, please do pop them in the Q&A box. Alrighty, so I have one to start us off. And my question is, have you ever intentionally written yourself into one of your novels? And if your answer is no, then have you ever accidentally written too much of yourself into one of your novels and had to edit yourself out? Eric.
I'm a huge yes. This is my debut novel, and it's me from cover to cover. Didn't even try to hide it.
Awesome. I'm interested to see what you have next, if it's going to be Eric 2.0 or...
It's a little, I'm not writing me the next time, so it should be an interesting journey.
All right, perfect. Charlotte.
Yeah, I've had a number of professors in books, and I even had one that got laid off the same year that I got laid off. So yes, definitely, all the time.
Sometimes writing is therapy, right? And before I forget, because it has been posted a couple of times, the community wants to know, Eric, did you get your dog back?
I was going to say that.
No spoilers as to what happens in the book. I'm not talking about the book at all. Yes, I got my dog back. So
Okay,
good.
all right.
He's
But the
safe and
suspense is
sound.
still there.
Thank goodness.
Aurora, have you ever written yourself into a book or accidentally done so and had to write yourself out?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always sort of little bits. My running joke with my friends and in my acknowledgements is that if you want to know what was going on in my life like a year and a half ago, like read the book, because I often, I think, not necessarily myself and my specific experiences, but the sort of general kind of stages of life and processing an emotional arc of my life at that moment tends to work its way into the stories I write. And I think a little bit like Eric, my first that was published definitely had a lot of myself baked in, because I just think you're a little bit in love with the art of writing and can't help it first go round.
Yeah, and you're not as great at developing unique characters too, so you draw from yourself. Susie, have you ever written yourself in intentionally or unintentionally and had to write yourself out?
I have written myself in. I don't think it's intentional, because I like to just develop the characters, and I think to myself, wow, that's really a good character. I did a good job on that. And then I look back and realize that you're a knucklehead. You just put a lot of yourself into that character. But yeah, I do. I try not to. I really try not to. But I don't know that we can help that as writers. We draw on our experiences to write, and we draw on the things that have happened to us and people we know and people we've observed. But yeah, I have a little bit of a problem doing that. I have to consciously try not to do that in my characters.
For sure. Georgia?
I would echo a lot of what Aurora said, because I do think there are always little elements of me in many of the characters, whether I want there to be or not. It's not usually intentional. But I also think that when you're first starting out, I think my earlier books, my first probably 5, have a lot more of me in them than later books, which is not to say that the later books don't have me. I think that I'm just more aware of it now. And like Susie, I have had times when I'm writing and I'm thinking, okay, well, what would I do in this situation? Then I have to stop myself and go, okay, no, it's not me. It's this character. So I have to like back up and shift and go, all right, what would this person do in this situation? But I don't think that there is a way to avoid putting at least a little bit of yourself in probably most of your characters. I do that. Most of them have a little bit of me.
And I think BSB's next sale is going to be Deep Backlist. If you would like to know our authors better, please buy their first book. All right, we do have a question in the Q&A box. Do you ever use names of people you know for your characters? When and why? Susie?
I do not. I purposely don't do that. My family especially have threatened me and my close friends. So I'm very careful not to use names like that, because I could get into a lot of trouble.
Fair enough. Aurora, resident expert on all things names.
I had to laugh because I think I do for secondary characters. I think it can be kind of a great kind of homage to people you know and care about. Can be a great way to get revenge on folks, but never main characters, because I pretty much write exclusively romance. And like, if I'm writing these character names having sex, like I can't stare across the conference table at you, like during a faculty committee meeting, like that, no, that's where I draw the line.
Eric, so your book is based on things that really happened to you. Did you use the names of the actual people involved?
No, I didn't. I actually changed my dog's name from Margot to Mamie. My dog was named after Margot Channing from All About Eve. And so I changed it to Auntie Mame. And then I just found this really great resource. All of my character names and place names throughout the entire book are first names and last names mishmashed together. Some characters, but mostly actors who have played in Auntie Mame, either on Broadway or the movie or the musical or the movie musical. I found all these great names from the 40s, right? Like, Coral. I mean, things that you wouldn't have thought about. And that's where I got all my names for this one. No names of, I protected the guilty in that way.
Great inspiration. Georgia.
Early on, as Aurora said, again, I'm going to copy her a little bit. I have named all of my nieces and nephews as secondary characters in the first probably 8 or 10 of my books. Just as and I don't even think they know it. I just did that. But again, as Aurora said, main characters, no, because that's just, no. And it's hard because I have some friends with some really cool names that I'm like, oh, I wish I could use that in a book, but I can't. What I do though, along the lines of what Eric said, is that most of my main characters, I have a celebrity in mind who, because I need something visual in my head. I'm a very visual writer. I don't usually tell readers because I don't want to bias them or turn them off or anything like that. So I know who people are, but a lot of times I will use a first name of a character they have played, if it's somebody that I need help remembering. Usually, because there are certain celebrities I have used more than once. And so those I don't have any trouble with and I don't need any help with. But once in a while, I will use somebody and I will name the character after a character that they have played that I'm fond of, just because it's fun. And then when I go look now and it's, 10, 15 books back, because I can't remember what names I've used anymore, I look at the name of the character and I'm like, oh yeah, that was so-and-so. So it helps me a little bit.
Have you ever accidentally reused a main character's name because you've forgotten that
I did it once in the proposal I sent to you, and I literally had to go back to my shelf of books and pull them all out because I'm like, I think I've used Abby before. And then I found her and I sent you an email and I'm like, I have to change this name. So it's been 33 books now and I have not used the same name for main characters. Sometimes I use the same ones for secondaries, but never the main characters.
Yeah, I ask because Rad does that sometimes and I'm like, no, that's so-and-so from 14 books ago. And she's like,
well, and I think readers have a better handle on that than I do.
For sure. Charlotte.
I would say usually not, but what's funny about this book is I used the name of my 2 friends whose wedding has been delayed. It's 3 years now because of the pandemic. Jay and Stuart, that have been trying to get married forever. And hopefully next year their wedding will actually take place. But I would say normally I actually feel like I use names from my favorite books or things like that usually. But this was an exception. It's just an homage to their wedding.
Nice. All right, one last quick question because we are almost out of time. Do you, as a reader, do you like to read novels with characters who are like you? Or do you like to escape yourself, escape your life, escape reality, and read about characters who aren't like you? Which one would you prefer? Susie.
Wow, for me, it depends on the story. I don't think I'd like to see me in a book. I think I'd rather just have someone that's definitely not like me. But I certainly like characters that do a lot of action, that, move around a lot and do things that aren't just sedentary. So yeah, I'd say some of them like me, a little blend maybe.
Blend, I like it. Aurora?
Yeah, I think it goes both ways. I think sometimes I love reading characters who are bolder or more adventurous or braver than I am. But every now and then I get kind of squishy, and to sort of read a character that feels at least sort of like a kindred spirit, kind of navigate the world and get a happily ever after is sort of like what my heart needs. So a little bit of both.
All right, that seems the popular answer. Eric.
I just need a character I can understand where they're coming from, and whether that's because they're just like me or whether the author's just done a really good job of explaining what's gone on with them and that's why they're behaving the way they are. I'm okay either way.
Yeah, that's great. Charlotte?
I think I'm gonna echo Eric there. Yeah, someone like me can be fun and interesting, and but I also really like a good villain, and I don't think of myself as a villain. So yeah, kind of the same and an alter ego can be interesting.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that. You kind of eliminate a lot of character types if you just want to reach yourself, right? No murder mysteries in that reading pile. Georgia, how about you?
I don't think I actively seek out characters that are like me, but I do know that if I'm reading and there is a character trait or something that they do that I relate to, I get a little like, I'm like, oh, yes, that's me. I get that. So that's always fun. You know, if it's somebody who's second guessing themselves or, you know, whatever, I'm always very happy to see a character trait that I share, but I don't go looking for that.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, well, we are out of time. Unfortunately, thank you to all our amazing authors and to our attendees for joining us. Have a great night, everybody.